Lost World by Michael Crichton. Actually better than Jurassic Park. No, it does not have as much on chaos theory, but it has some even more interesting stuff. Right on page 1, we have an explanation for the main character's very explicit death at the end of Jurassic Park. The book, of course, he doesn't die in the movies. Of course, I'm talking about Ian Malcolm. It doesn't really spoil anything because apparently it didn't happen. I was sorry to cut short the celebrations in mathematics departments around the country, but it turned out that I was only slightly dead. So, the premise. Isla Nublar, the main island that we know of as the Jurassic Park island, in the book, they don't just leave it, they bomb it. They just nuke the crap out of it, killing all the dinosaurs. So they're all dead, and it's something that Ian Malcolm feels like he'll never have to worry about again. But they needed to make a sequel, and it's a good sequel. It's a good sequel. It's not me complaining. There is another island. It takes place in 1993. Nothing takes me back like Jurassic Park does. It just teleports you right to the 90s. Looking back, I think that Jurassic Park had the perfect premise. It instantly sells itself. And so it's tough to top it with a sequel. But still, somehow, I feel like this improves upon the formula. It's more exciting, and I was surprised. When you read the Jurassic Park book, there are a few surprises in it, like the one that I spoiled, but it wasn't really a spoiler. But this is like all new. There are a few characters that they put into the movies, but they're not anywhere near as cool. Sarah Harding is a good example. Sarah Harding is fucking badass. She's like Indiana Jones times Tomb Raider times infinity. So okay, the plot. Ian Malcolm is back to doing lectures, and he's confronted by Professor Levine, Richard Levine, who believes he has found living dinosaurs. He's put some things together, and he thinks that Ian Malcolm knows something about this. He's slowly put together clues about what happened in Jurassic Park. So the Costa Rican government is trying to squash the reality that dinosaurs are washing up on their shores, most of them dead, and getting people sick. They don't want it to turn into this big thing. So Professor Levine finds one of the carcasses of these dinosaurs, and he's trying to figure out what it is, because of course you don't immediately assume it's a dinosaur. Even if you found a dead body of a dinosaur, you'd think this must be some creature that we just haven't discovered yet. So Professor Levine finds a carcass, and he takes samples from this carcass. It's tough for him to convince Ian Malcolm that this is real, even though Ian Malcolm, he's just pretending. He doesn't want any part of this. He already died once, why die again? Professor Levine finds his way to Isla Sorna, the island that generates the cloned dinosaurs. This isn't where they're presented. This isn't where they're shown off. But of course, as soon as he gets to Isla Sorna, he's ambushed by dinosaurs, and he is pounced. Ian Malcolm and the team that was meant to go on the expedition don't hear from him. They're awesome people. They decide to go and save him. There's another member on this team named Professor Jack Thorne. He owns the company that builds all of their expedition gear. So he designs all their expedition gear for this crazy thing, and he has no idea what it's even about up until this point. He's just told that we need electric vehicles that don't need gasoline, that can recharge from solar energy, because we're going to be there for a while, and they have to be armored like a tank. But they aren't the only ones looking for the island. Dodgson, we got Dodgson here. He's the main bad guy, and he's actually physically on the island now. He's interacting with some of these main characters, and he's just as much as a physical threat as the dinosaurs themselves. Dodgson, of course, was working with Biosyn, a competitive company with InGen, but this time they're trying to steal dinosaur eggs. And the rest of it kind of writes itself. You know, you got velociraptors, you got T-Rexes, you got everything in between. But this time it goes a little deeper, because we already know about this. It doesn't have the same novelty as the first book, so it can't survive just based on that. And I think that a lot of people don't think that the additional concepts brought forth in this novel are enough to make up for that gap, but I think that it's plenty. The reason he brought back Ian Malcolm was because he is the voice of Michael Crichton. In Crichton's own words, he is the ironic commentator. He's constantly thinking about the hubris of man and how we think we're so much more significant than we are, but at the same time recognizes our capacity for destruction of the things around us and our environment around us. Him bringing back Ian Malcolm was actually an homage to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle bringing back Sherlock after he obviously dies in one particular sequence. Arthur Conan Doyle, of course, wrote the original title named Lost Worlds, which was, I believe, 1912. This is a great example of a novel where you take your protagonist and you put him into a terrible situation, you give him a way out, but that way out makes things even worse. And then he finds another way out of that and it gets even worse. And you just keep adding on these problems after problems. This work is not as hyper-focused on a specific theme or philosophy as Jurassic Park was. Jurassic Park was all about chaos theory. It was trying to get across this one particular idea. This one's getting across a couple of ideas. I'd say two different ideas. The first being mass extinction. Everything in an environment is connected. If one species fails, it causes many other species to fail because they might be a food source for this one, or they might affect the flora in this way. Everything's connected. It doesn't require a meteor for mass extinction to occur. There's something up with these dinosaurs, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I think it's interesting to think about this as you're reading it. The passing down of behavior is just as significant as the passing down of genetics. So these dinosaurs, they're not really dinosaurs, and the main reason is that even if they were perfect genetic replications of those dinosaurs, they still wouldn't be dinosaurs because they did not learn the behavior from their parents. They don't understand how they fit into the environment that they currently exist in. They don't know how to be what they are. The velociraptors, they're supposed to be this pack where they all cooperate to an extent. Their brains and their physical attributes show this, and yet they don't act that way. They act like a bunch of serial killers who constantly prey on each other. They kill their young because they can, because they have those capabilities. But they didn't learn from their parents not to do that. So it's a very dangerous place. It's much more dangerous than the original island in Jurassic Park, and therefore it's much more interesting. It's scarier. It's got more of a horror aspect to it. Complex animals had traded one dependency for another. It was no longer necessary to change their bodies to adapt, because now their adaptation was behavior. Behavior is built up over countless generations. It cannot be artificially induced. Now, think of the human race. How many times have we had to start from scratch because of the acidic nature of barbarism? While there may be some particular group that have started animal husbandry and farming, and they're able to create a sense of community, we have these other nomadic humans that prey on them. There are many times in human history where this has happened, like with the Mongols or the Equish, which are still very mysterious. We're not able to live in just one place in a particular home. We have to be nomadic because we need to find a food source constantly as it's depleted. We deplete this one, we go somewhere else. And so the best way to do that is to attack other groups that have already figured out these adaptations of behavior. And so we're erasing their behavior. We're starting their save file from scratch. That's happened how many times? We don't know. It makes you wonder how much of what makes us modern humans is truly genetic, and how much is it just passed down behavior. If there were, say, an event of barbarism that somehow took over, like some, a post-apocalyptic kind of vibe, would we retreat back to being nomadic peoples who know nothing? Would we forget every single thing we'd advanced upon? Would we forget ourselves? So the other philosophical concept that I didn't bring up has to do with science itself and ideas themselves. So I'd like to leave you with one more quote. This is by Professor Thorne. I wouldn't take any of it too seriously. It's just theories. Human beings can't help making them. But the fact is that theories are just fantasies, and they change. 100 years from now, people will look back at us and laugh. They'll say, "You know what people used to believe?"